The galactic frontier station Kale-7 was not a place for the faint-hearted. It orbited the gas giant Thurok, a churning purple monster of a planet, and it served as the primary trading hub between 14 different species. Mercenaries lounged in its corridors. Diplomats argued in its halls. Black market dealers whispered in its shadows. And security officers, the best commander Kale Vera had ever trained, kept every single soul in line. Or so he believed. Until the day Mara Ellison walked through the docking gate with 3 bear cubs at her heels. Kale was reviewing the morning patrol reports when his comms unit crackled. "Sir, you need to come to Gate 9. Now." He recognized the voice of Junior Officer Dorum, a Velhari with 4 arms and nerves of chrome. Dorum did not rattle easily. The tremor in his voice was enough to make Kale set down his reports and walk, not run, to Gate 9. What he found stopped him mid-stride. A human woman, compact, dark-skinned, wearing a battered cargo jacket covered in patches from a dozen different planets, stood at the entry scanner. She had a duffel bag over one shoulder, a datapad in her left hand, and absolutely zero expression of concern on her face. Behind her, 3 Kareth bear cubs. The Kareth were native to the frozen moon of Velsora. Adults stood nearly 4 meters tall, weighed close to a metric ton, and possessed enough raw strength to crack a reinforced airlock with their bare forepaws. They were not domesticated. They were not pets. They were, in every official galactic registry document, listed as Category 5 apex predators, restricted contact. The cubs were maybe 6 months old. Each one was already the size of a large earth horse. Their silver-white fur shimmered under the station lights. Their black eyes, all 6 of them per cub, tracked every guard in the room with slow, eerie patience. One of them pressed its enormous head against the back of the woman's knee. She didn't flinch. "Ma'am," Kale said, stepping forward, clasping his hands behind his back the way he always did when he was choosing calm over the alternative. "I am Commander Kale Vera, Chief of Security for this station. Can you explain what you are doing with 3 Category 5 restricted predators in a civilian entry zone?" The woman looked up from her datapad. Her eyes were amber. Tired but sharp. "Mara Ellison," she said. "Independent cargo contractor, licensed under the Frontier Accords, Sector 9 clearance." She held out her datapad. "My manifest is clean. I checked it twice." Kale took the datapad. He scanned it. She was right, technically, about the cargo manifest. But there was nothing on that manifest about 3 living Kareth cubs the size of small vehicles. "Your manifest doesn't include them," he said. "They're not cargo," Mara replied simply. "Then what are they?" She looked at him for a moment. Not with hostility. Not with arrogance. With the kind of patience that someone develops after explaining something obvious too many times. "They're with me," she said. Kale pulled her aside, or rather, attempted to pull her aside. The moment he gestured for her to step away from the entry gate, the largest cub made a sound. Not a growl. Not a roar. Something lower. A deep, resonant vibration that seemed to come from the floor itself, and every guard in the room took one unconscious step backward. Mara put her hand on the cub's head without looking at it. The vibration stopped. "It's okay, Raka," she said quietly. "Stand down." The cub sat. The other 2 sat as well, in perfect synchrony, as if they were connected by some invisible signal. In Kale's 22 years of security work, across 6 stations, 4 war zones, and 1 truly catastrophic diplomatic incident involving a Threllian emperor and a stolen dessert cart, he had never seen a Category 5 predator sit on command. He led Mara to a side office. The cubs followed. He didn't try to stop them. When the door closed, he sat across from her and folded his hands on the table. "Start from the beginning," he said. Mara exhaled. She set her datapad down. 8 months ago, she said, I was running a delivery to a research station on Velsora. When I landed, the station was gone. Raided. The Kareth research team, 3 scientists, 2 support staff, were dead. The facility was stripped. And in the wreckage of the breeding enclosure, I found these 3. She glanced toward the cubs. Raka, the largest, was now examining the office's atmospheric vent with intense curiosity. Their mother? Kale asked. Killed during the raid. Mara's voice was flat. Not emotionless, controlled. I filed a report. Sent distress signals. Waited 48 hours for any sanctioned wildlife authority to respond. She picked up her datapad again. Nobody came. So you took them, Kale said. I kept them alive, she corrected. There's a difference. He looked at the 3 cubs. Raka had lost interest in the vent and was now leaning against Mara's chair. One of the others, smaller, with a notched ear, had placed its massive head in her lap. She was stroking it absently, still looking at Kale. The Galactic Registry classifies them as? I know what they classify them as, Mara interrupted. I've read every document. I've filed every form that exists to file. I've contacted the Velsoran Wildlife Commission, the Frontier Accord Animal Protection Division, and the Interspecies Conservation Board. She paused. You know what they all told me? Kale said nothing. They said orphaned Kareth cubs under 1-year-old cannot survive without maternal bonding. They said the cubs should be humanely euthanized. She said the words without flinching. They said it was the compassionate option. Silence settled in the office. Raka made a low, soft sound, almost like a purr, and pressed closer to her arm. Clearly, Kale said slowly, euthanasia was not the option you chose. No, Mara said. It was not. Kale spent the next 3 hours reviewing everything. He pulled her full file. Mara Ellison, 34, originally from New Nairobi, Earth. 8 years as an independent contractor. Clean record, 2 minor customs delays, 1 disputed cargo weight, nothing criminal. She had no formal training in xenobiology. No credentials in animal handling. No affiliation with any conservation organization. She was, by every official measure, completely unqualified to do what she had done. And yet. He watched the security feed from Gate 9. He watched the way the 3 cubs moved around her, not like animals following a trainer, not like pets following an owner. Like a family following its center. They read her body language the way seasoned soldiers read a battlefield. When she tensed, they tensed. When she relaxed, they settled. The notch-eared one, she'd called it Sivo, hadn't left her side for a single second. He went back to the office. Mara was asleep in the chair, her head tipped back, her datapad still in her hand. Raka was curled at her feet. Sivo was pressed against the door, awake, watching Kale with all 6 eyes as he entered. He sat down across from her and waited. When she woke, alert immediately, the way people who spent too long in dangerous places learn to wake, she looked at him without apology. Are you going to confiscate them? She asked. Kale looked at the cubs. Then at her. I'm going to make some calls, he said. The Conservation Board has a new director. She's been trying to rebuild the Velsoran Kareth program for 2 years. What you have here, he paused. What you are here, for these 3, that's not something they can replicate in a facility. Mara was quiet for a moment. So what does that mean? She asked. It means, Kale said carefully, that I am going to recommend you be granted a provisional xenobiological custodian status, pending review. He straightened his jacket. It also means that your companions are still a Category 5 restricted classification, and you will need to follow every protocol I'm about to outline, or I will personally ensure the paperwork buries you for a decade. Mara stared at him. Then, for the first time since she'd walked through Gate 9, she smiled. Deal, she said. Raka lifted his enormous head, looked at Kale with calm, ancient eyes, and made a sound that, in the later, unofficial station logs, Kale would describe simply as satisfied. 3 weeks later, when the Conservation Board's representative arrived on the station and asked who was responsible for the 3 Kareth cubs currently occupying half of Docking Bay 4, Commander Kale Vera stood straight, clasped his hands behind his back, and said, "They answer to no one but her." He said it like it was the most obvious thing in the galaxy. Because by then, it was.